This is CBC Nova Scotia News.
Tonight, bear in the air. Officials safely removed this tree-climbing trespasser from the Dartmouth Commons.
Loan limits. New data shows the maximum student assistance from the province has grown only once in the last 12 years.
And landmark launch. Nova Scotia Legal Aid opens a first-of-its-kind office on the Sabaganagati First Nation.
This front will continue to sink south, ushering in these northerly winds, which will make for a more fall-like feel on Friday. Your full forecast is coming up.
Good evening. We begin tonight with something you don't see every day, especially not in the heart of a city.
But this afternoon, Dartmouth was playing host to a bear. The furry forager was browsing in the Dartmouth Common area before seeking refuge in a tree. Police were asking the public to stay away this afternoon, and 2 schools were placed on a hold and secure. The bear was clinging to a branch when authorities caught up to him.
Officers from the Department of Natural Resources and Renewables eventually tranquilized the bear and placed padding under the tree to help make for a softer landing. The area was opened shortly after the bear was carted away, and DFO says the bear will live. CBC News has obtained data on student financial assistance from the Nova Scotia government. It found that the maximum amount of student loans and grants that the province provides has only increased once in the last 12 years. Andrew Lamb has that story for us tonight.
Here in Nova Scotia, some students are saying the province needs to do more to help them financially. As tuition rates and the cost of living have gone up, Nova Scotia student loans have not increased to match them. The maximum provincial loan and grant amounts have risen just once in the last dozen years, going up 11% in 2017. That's based on data from the Department of Advanced Education.
Students right now are being forced to decide, what they want to spend their money on, whether it's rent, tuition, groceries. They're struggling to just be able to live.
Statistics Canada data shows that Nova Scotia has the highest average undergraduate domestic tuition in the country. The province has provided one-time grants to students in recent years. Last year, for example, nearly 12,000 students each received a grant of more than $1,300.
As somebody who benefits from a Nova Scotia student loan, they've obviously been very helpful. I believe it was from 2021 to 2023. We've received one-time grants. But obviously, if you're giving one-time grants, that probably means that there's an issue with the way that they're providing financial assistance to students.
The proportion of loans versus grants has also stayed the same. Since 2013, Nova Scotia students have been receiving 40% of their base provincial assistance as grants. The rest are loans. Students Nova Scotia says that proportion needs to go up.
We have been pushing for is for the province to have 100% of their student financial assistance fund or other pool to be pushed into grants to make sure that when students graduate, they should not be in a financial restraint.
Statistics Canada says post-secondary students in the province graduate with among the highest debt in the country. In a statement, the Department of Advanced Education says it's focused on making it more affordable for students to stay and build a life in Nova Scotia. The department pointed to a number of actions taken, including a 2% undergraduate tuition cap for the 2024 to 25 school year. Andrew Lamb, CBC News, Halifax.
The group appointed to make sure people, police, and governments don't forget about the events of April 2020 is wrapping up its first year of operation. The Progress Monitoring Committee was created in the aftermath of the deadly rampage that saw 22 Nova Scotians murdered in just 13 hours. The committee comes out of the Mass Casualty Commission and its 130 recommendations aimed at ensuring such a tragedy never happens again. Former Lieutenant Governor Myra Freeman has taken over as committee chair. She says progress is being made, but she urges patience.
For meaningful and in some cases transformational change to occur, we want to ensure that it's done right, and it takes time. And taking a shortcut for the sake of speed is not what we want. We want to make sure it's done properly, and we only have one chance to do this, and it's really important that we do it. So the pace is really dictated by the complexity of the information we receive and by the implementation process.
Freeman says the committee will release a full report on its first year of operations in November.
The Nova Scotia Legal Aid is opening a new office at the Sbaganagati First Nation to try to make things better for Indigenous people who need their services. The model is believed to be the first of its kind for First Nations communities in Atlantic Canada. And as Gareth Hampshire explains, it is aimed at removing barriers people have talked about for a long time.
Jennifer Cox is one of two Mi'kmaq lawyers who will be working out of this office here at Sbaganagati First Nation. She's watched Indigenous people struggle in the justice system, so it's a big step for her to be part of a new approach.
People need legal assistance when they're in trouble or having contact with the law, and it's not been very easy for them to get the assistance that they need, and it's very difficult to watch people in the system unable to get the help they need.
Chief Michelle Glasgow says the project is an important collaboration for the community. One of its main goals is to create fast and easy access to legal guidance. Some people without vehicles have found it difficult to get to places like Truro for court appearances in the past.
But if you can't get to court, then there's a warrant for your arrest issued and you're thrown in jail. And you might be thrown in jail for the entire weekend. It might be longer than that, depending on what the circumstances are, and that's not necessary.
There is Indigenous artwork throughout the building honouring culture and tradition. The paint on the piece at the entrance is faded in the middle, depicting a time when people were vulnerable. The orange pieces represent those who were forced into residential schools, and the purple ones are for children who did not make it home.
I think it's huge because we're finally delivering a service that's delivered in a culturally sensitive, a culturally appropriate way, opposed to having, like I said, our members go out to Windsor, where it's a strange environment and they're meeting a stranger for the first time.
It's the latest step from Legal Aid, who've been working on a path of reconciliation.
And thinking about it in concrete and substantive ways of what we can do. To address the overrepresentation we know of Indigenous clients in both the criminal and family justice systems.
There are hopes in the community that some gaps in services will be dealt with and that people's unique cultural needs can be met through this new strategy.
I cannot express the trauma-informed approaches, right? And that goes hand in hand with healing and taking those next steps towards, restorative and reconciliation, and just having that gentle nudge and that caring transition into the court offices.
The office officially opens in October. Gareth Hampshire, CBC News, Sbaganagati.
Time for our first quick look at the weather forecast with Ryan Snoddon.
Yes, and things are not quite as mid-July-like out there today.
A noticeable difference today, a noticeable difference tomorrow as well, as the northeast winds really kick in and make it feel a lot like fall. Thank you so much, Tom and Amy. As we look at those high temperatures today, most of us in that 21 to 24 range. We did hit 25 in Halifax, 26 in Sheet Harbor. Things have changed, though. Things did change throughout the afternoon as we had the northeast winds kicking in along that northeast coast and into Cape Breton. And that front will continue to sink southward in behind, reinforcing those northeast winds. The setup for Friday with that northeast wind near 20, gusting 30 to even 40 kilometers per hour it's just going to have such an influence on the day overall and how it feels. We're going to see the clouds pretty stubborn tomorrow, especially along the Atlantic coastline and into the southwest. A little more opportunity for some sun breaks here in through the northeast, but overall expecting those clouds will dominate. There is a chance of isolated showers on Friday. That's going to be the name of the game through the weekend as well. Isolated showers, but far from a washout. Your 7-day is still to come.
All right, thanks for that, Ryan.
Do stay tuned. All right, thanks so much, Ryan. There continues to be reports of illegal fishing in the province's southwestern region. Nova Scotia's Fisheries Minister Kent Smith has renewed his call to his federal counterparts for help to stamp it out in the Clare area. And Mr. Smith with us from Province House. Sir, the federal minister says she will respond to your letter in due course and that her department has said all along that enforcement is happening. What do you make of that?
Well, first of all, I sent a pretty strongly worded letter on August 22nd that hopefully she would take it seriously, and to see that yesterday she said that she would respond in due course is very, very disappointing. This is a really, really serious issue. The people that I'm talking to on the ground in the Clare region are sharing serious concerns for public safety with me. I did my best to convey that to the federal minister and expected her to take it as seriously as we are.
And so it's illegal fishing by whom?
Criminals, Tom. That's the reports that we're getting, that this is criminal activity, and it's leading to other crimes in the area. We're hearing of arson. We're hearing of drive-by shootings and things that really should not be happening anywhere in the world, let alone the beautiful community and region of Clare.
Is organized crime a part of the scene there now, as some in the local area are suggesting?
I can only share what we're hearing, and what I hear from harvesters and what I hear from harvester organizations is that, yes, there's the link to organized crime.
Indigenous fishermen are entitled to food, social, and ceremonial fishery. What do you make is happening on that front?
I think we're talking about two separate lines of fisheries here. So you're right that the Indigenous have their rights under FSC fishing, and then full stop period. The next thing is, as I alluded to earlier, Tom, this is criminal activity by criminal harvesters that needs DFO enforcement on the water.
Those illegal lobsters, as you put it, have been sold somewhere. Your government controls that side of the industry. Have you cracked down on buyers?
I will say that there's two parts to that answer, Tom. So if an illegally harvested lobster comes to the wharf and then that lobster goes onto a truck and that truck bypasses all the buyers and processors in our province and leaves the region, then we don't have any opportunity for enforcement. But to your point that our province licenses the buyers and the processors, yes, we have ramped up enforcement efforts in processing facilities in that region.
Have you caught any of the buyers at this point? Do you think that's happening on the Nova Scotia soil?
I can't comment on that right now, Tom.
But you've investigated? You are investigating it?
The compliance officers fall under the Department of Natural Resources and Renewables, and I know that they've been in a number of plants over the last few weeks.
Just quickly before I let you go, what would you like the federal minister to do?
I would love for her and her senior leadership to prioritize enforcement on the water in Southwest Nova, as I've continued to call for over a year now, which you saw in the frustration that I've asked for it multiple times, and then we used some strong language in our most recent letters to try and get her attention.
Ken Smith is Nova Scotia's Fisheries Minister. Thank you for your time today, sir.
Thank you, Tom. I appreciate the opportunity.
The Crown Corporation that's redeveloping Dartmouth's Shannon Park into a new 3,000-home neighborhood has selected a group of affordable housing experts to help guide the work. Canada Lands owns the former military community that was demolished in 2017. One of those experts says the 34-hectare property gives them a blank slate with which to work.
It's a very rare and precious thing because it's land that's quite central and it's big enough that you can dream big. And so I wanted to be, quite frankly, I wanted to be part of something really cool, something really interesting, and that has the capacity to make a very significant impact if we're able to achieve the kind of affordable and complete community that we imagine.
Canada Lands expects construction to start in the fall of 2025.
14 more pharmacies will be opening clinics in their businesses to deal with minor illnesses or ailments. They're joining the existing network of pharmacies participating in a pilot project launched about 18 months ago. The province will be paying about $440,000 a year to the new clinics, which will open at the end of October. The head of the Pharmacy Association of Nova Scotia says allowing pharmacists to use more of their training is helping attract people to the profession.
Quite a turnaround on the HR side. Yes, we're still short in community pharmacy. Yes, there's still lots of postings. There's still more work to do. But having a scope of practice like this, being able to work in clinics like this is what is attracting people to Nova Scotia.
Bodner says after years of less than full enrollment at Dalhousie's pharmacy school, this year the program has a full roster of first-year students. The province says Nova Scotians have received nearly 200,000 services since the start of the program.
There's hope a shipbuilding museum in Maitland will still reopen after being closed this summer. The province says Lawrence House has faced staffing shortages and declining visitation. The museum recognizes what was once the largest shipbuild in Atlantic Canada. Last week, about 40 people attended a community meeting with the province to discuss the future of the shipbuilder's home.
I think what we need to do moving forward after that meeting is really put a good strong group together that sort of has knowledge, not just of the museum and its history, but of the area, of tourism.
Despite the closure, Lockyer says there will be celebrations and a ship replica launched into Cobequid Bay this fall. And she says more events are being planned for next year to mark the 150 years since the W.D. Lawrence made its maiden voyage around the world. While passengers aboard an American cruise ship are experiencing the sounds of Nova Scotia through a new band.
Breton Thunder is performing aboard 2 Holland America line ships that sail the East Coast and New England. Kyle Moore took in the sounds during their stop in Sydney.
Made up of band members from across Canada, this group has been put together to provide an authentic Nova Scotia music experience. Liam Campbell is from Sydney River. He says they've been getting rave reviews.
This is not me being patriotic. They love it. They love it. It's something different, right? They never heard this style of music before.
Campbell has performed solo on cruise ships in the past, but never as part of a band. He jumped at the opportunity to showcase where he's from.
We talk about how music is a mainstay in Cape Breton, as everybody around the area knows, and talks about the struggles of the 90s and a lot of different stuff in the show, but mainly how music is kind of our bread and butter around here.
It's been a dream come true for me, honestly.
Ali Baisley is from Ontario. She was part of the group who were sent to Las Vegas to learn the music and about our culture.
I have learned how rich it is in culture and how deep it is in storytelling and how it's meant to be fun. It's meant to be fun, it's meant to be fluid and kind of off the cuff, organic, and played in the kitchen.
Noticing even the fiddle on the dock in Sydney, I've thought there has to be a way to bring something authentic like this on board our ships.
Bill Prince is the Vice President of Entertainment for the Holland America line. He says the goal is to showcase local music.
Even if they don't know the tunes, it's toe tapping, it's hand clapping, it's melodies that they can grab onto, and they have an absolutely fantastic time. In general, the show always ends with them on their feet in a good way.
The band will continue belting out the sounds we're all familiar with to visitors on sailings into October. Kyle Moore, CBC News, Sydney.
Yeah, it's played in the kitchens around here for sure, but sounds pretty good on the cruise ships too, doesn't it?
Kitchen party, you can't beat it, huh?
Toe tapping, good way to put it, right?
Definitely. All right, well, Ryan is up next with his weather forecast. Before we go, let's take a look through the lens of our harbor cam. Pretty nice night out there.
Beautiful evening in Halifax, a little cooler than we've been used to the last few nights, but pretty nice to stay.
Yeah, we'll see you in a few minutes.
All right, let's talk weather. And I know we have been spoiled this last little while, but yeah, coming back to reality
Today
now.
was still nice,
Yeah, it
so
was.
like we can't diminish that.
No doubt. Compared to the last 2 days, though, a change.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, even more so. And yeah, of course, fall officially begins on Sunday, but it is going to feel a lot like fall tomorrow and throughout the weekend. And on that note, I thought I would take some time. We know what kind of a summer it's been, right? So went back, looked at the stats to see how muggy of a summer it was and where it ranks overall based on the oppressive hours. Now, we can't, it's a little too technical to add up all the hours that felt muggy, but oppressive feeling, that's a little easier. We look at the dew point of 20 or more, and you can see that summer 2024, very close to summer 2021, but basically a top 3 finish for this summer. And yeah, these are again the oppressive, really muggy hours that we add up here. And that's looking at Halifax Airport. So again, kind of a central location. And again, the striking thing here is every single year on the top list here is since 2010. So our summers are definitely getting muggier.
Things are changing,
No doubt about it.
So yeah, almost 300 hours. And you know what? We almost added to that today in the Halifax area. Didn't quite get there. This is Lower West Pubnico and the Acadian village there. You can see it's pretty damp there, lots of clouds, but that is one of the spots where the dew point actually today did hit 20 and is still 20 at this hour. Didn't quite get there, as we said, in the Halifax area, but you can see that drier air starting to work its way into Cape Breton and along the Northumberland shore. This is where that wind has shifted to the north already, and those temperatures have dropped a few degrees from the daytime highs earlier, 17, 18 degrees right now. And you can see 24 in Halifax, still our hot spot right now, and a bit of an onshore flow here where the wet weather has been lingering for much of the day. You can see humidex values, low 20s, and yes, still high 20s in Shelburne, feeling 29 in Yarmouth, given that muggy air. The winds have shifted to the northeast, as we said here. Down to the southwest, it's a lighter wind. And let's show you the radar where, again, we've been kind of sandwiched between the system off to the south, which has been bringing that wet weather throughout the day to the Yarmouth area, but particularly down through the Shelburne County area. And then there's that front, which has been moving through. Few isolated showers along this front as it does spill southward over the next 24 hours. Let's back things out, show you the big picture across North America. And you can see where that 37 standing out on the board at Oklahoma City as the warm air really continues to dominate across the U.S. South. Temperatures much cooler in the prairies today, 13 in Regina, 25 in Toronto, and yes, 22, of course, as we said, in and around the HRM, though 24 downtown. As we have a look at the temperatures tonight, the winds are going to become northeast, so a cooler night overall, 13, 14, 15 degrees. Those winds will be sustained near 20, gusting 30 to 40 for Cape Breton. Note the shower chances through the south and west look like they're going to retreat offshore. And then so for tomorrow, it's kind of a cloudy day, a few showers off and on. The greatest chances again in through here in the south and west. Clouds will be most dominant in through the southwest. Brighter skies towards the north and east, including Cape Breton, with just an isolated chance of a shower here. Northeast winds, 20 gusting 30 to 40 throughout the day, with temperatures 18 to 21. You can see for central areas, similar story temperature-wise, high teens, low 20s. And in the west, 17 in Shelburne, should crack 20 in through the valley and through the Kedzie area. Note for Saturday, variable clouds, a little more cloud cover down towards the south and west, and a few isolated showers. Looks like the greatest risk will be Cape Breton, particularly in the later stages of the day. High pressure off to the north over Labrador, but there's a system over the North Atlantic, which is going to continue to bring moisture at least into the mix. Sunday, a mix of sun and cloud, but we will be looking at that potential for some isolated showers and drizzle yet again. A greater risk on Sunday than there is on Saturday, but still far from a washout this weekend. And then we will really kick off fall with some pretty fall-like temperatures right through much of next week, Tom and Amy.
Seems appropriate.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks, Ryan.
Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you.
Coming up, Pablo Rodriguez resigns from the federal cabinet to seek the leadership of the Quebec Liberal Party.
And making affordable housing a reality in Dartmouth's Shannon Park. That's the topic of our Newsmaker coming up after the break. 10, experts will provide advice on bringing affordable housing to Dartmouth's Shannon Park. The site's owner is Crown Corporation Canada Lands. It assembled the group to help deliver the commitment of 3,000 new residential units with 20% affordable housing. I'm joined now by Mia Swokanaucio with YWCA Halifax. Hi there. So first of all, why did you want to be part of this group on this committee?
I think people in Nova Scotia are very familiar with the Shannon Park lands, and it's a bit of a blank slate. It's a very rare and precious thing because it's land that's quite central and it's big enough that you can dream big. And so I wanted to be, quite frankly, I wanted to be part of something really cool, something really interesting, and that has the capacity to make a very significant impact if we're able to achieve the kind of affordable and complete community that we imagine.
And with your background, what specifically do you hope to bring to the table?
I have a background both at the YWCA, but also in my previous life and work that I've done. I've been at the Y for 10 years. I really want to see what a truly, like, we know what the research says, and I want to bring to the table dignity, complete communities, affordability, a kind of vivacious, lively community, and that also is able to understand that there's a role for everybody, including people on very fixed incomes.
Well, what does affordable mean? You know, we see all kinds of rents that are very costly around the city. Where do you start?
Yeah, the Canada Mortgage Housing Corporation, and generally a lot of people use this definition that housing shouldn't be more than 30% of your gross income. And we know that a lot of Nova Scotians are working or receiving very small amounts through their social assistance benefits or disability supports. And so for us, affordability can be really, really, really tricky to pin down. And some families' affordability, and I'm not trying to be evasive, but for some families, for example, or individuals, if you're a single and you don't have any other source of revenue than just your job, so you don't have any child benefits, you don't have any old age security benefits, a couple, an elder couple is very different than a younger couple. So what kind of benefits and what sort of revenue? For newcomers, there's a very specific thing that we often forget about, is that they're sending money back home. That for a lot of people living in Halifax and in Nova Scotia who have come here, they are kind of the ambassadors for their family and are supporting whole communities sometimes back home. So affordability looks very different. In my dream world, a single adult could find a place that starts with a 7, so 700 something. And for families, low 1,000. So because they sometimes have other sources of child benefits. And looking at that is always a guideline. The math is where the magic happens, because in reality, it costs quite a lot to build, whether it's an apartment building or single family homes or modulars. The cost of construction is very high, and so how do we get from A to B? That's going to be part of the work of this committee.
This is a big project, and 20% deemed to be, that's the goal, affordable.
Yeah, I mean, those were terms that were set out by the Canada Lands Company, and I think in their conditions, it's going to be up to the committee and working with Canada Lands and with all orders of government, I'm sure, to be able to say, how do we get to 20% and what does that 20% look like? And can we even exceed 20%, really? Like, let's go big.
Now, does affordable housing, in your view, continue for the life of the building, or is there a time limit on it?
Oh, my personal preference is that there's always a strong timeline, a long timeline. So YWCA Halifax, this is our 150th anniversary, and we've been doing housing this entire time. We purchase properties, we run properties, and we've seen that there are people who needed affordable housing 10 years ago and still need affordable housing today. For many, 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 many Nova Scotians, the conditions of their lives do not change appreciably, and they will always need affordability. And for some of them, they're going to move, and in some cases, they're going to move out of that need, but there will be others coming up behind them. Whether they're born and raised in Nova Scotia or new to Nova Scotia, they've had a family situation, a health crisis, a mental health crisis, whether they're not able to gain enough through their employment for any number of reasons, and whether income assistance rates are able to keep up with what's going on. So in my ideal, and obviously part of what we would advocate for in being part of a committee like this, is that affordability exceeds well into the future.
Are there any examples that are being built now or that you've seen built that you think you could learn from?
Yeah, I think we're going to look, my goal, I think about housing all the time. I read about housing. I attend conferences, is really looking at what's happening in our landscape right now. We can look at other communities and what has happened, but the truth is 2024 is very specific. We have seen interest rates go up. We've seen the cost of construction. We've seen labor force challenges. And I think that we need to look at what's being done across Canada and take it to this community in this point in time. We just closed this summer on modular housing in partnership with the Shaw Group. We were able to achieve affordability. Maybe that's a model that we can look at, but I'm not going to peg to this. And what I'm really looking forward to is listening to the expertise of the committee and learning from what's happening across the country.
And you meet soon?
October 3rd is the first meeting. So we haven't even had our first meeting yet. We haven't finalized the terms of reference. But everybody who put their name forward is saying, I'm committing to this and I'm interested in solutions. And I do know there were actually many more people who had applied who were not selected, so it's really interesting. I should say, if you look at the list, there isn't an environmental group on the list. And so I've kind of agreed to, in my own mind, to be able to also bring greening energy and energy efficiency, because that will, in the long game, not only have an environmental outcome, but also a cost savings and affordability as well.
All right, we're going to leave it there.
Thank you very much.
Coming up, the stolen Winston Churchill portrait is handed over to Canadian authorities in Rome before its homecoming at Ottawa's Chateau Laurier.
Welcome back. Another high-profile member of Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's cabinet is heading for the exit. Transport Minister Pablo Rodriguez is leaving the job and his role as a key organizer in Quebec to pursue the leadership of the provincial Liberal Party.
His departure comes on the heels of a crucial by-election loss in Montreal. Rafi Boudjikanian has more.
It's not just physical distance Pablo Rodriguez is placing between himself and Ottawa.
I am announcing that I have decided to enter the race to become leader of the Quebec Liberal Party, where it all began for me.
That means he's no longer the federal transport minister or Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's chief Quebec organizer. He's even resigning as a federal Liberal to sit as an independent MP for now, but insists that's got nothing to do with the National Party's current unpopularity.
Now I have the opportunity to set my own priorities. I was defending the priorities of the government and I did it in a very loyal way, and it's normal and it's what I had to do.
Trudeau gave the transport file to Treasury Board President Anita Anand, but Rodriguez's departure is not his only political headache. From the province key to his electoral fortunes, this.
La semaine prochaine, dans une motion de non-confiance.
Premier François Legault leaning on the Bloc Québécois to vote in favor of a conservative motion scheduled next week to bring down the federal Liberal government.
I never support Liberals. Help me God. I go against the Conservatives on a vote that is only about Pierre Poilievre and his huge ambition for himself. I support the interests of Quebecers.
Fresh off a by-election loss to the Bloc Québécois in Montreal, the Liberals moved quickly this afternoon to announce a replacement for Rodriguez as their Quebec point man.
It's important to keep doing the work that Quebecers expect us to do in the year to come. They have elected us for a 4-year mandate.
Trudeau did find some reprieve today, the NDP announcing it will not vote with the Conservatives to defeat his party next week either, practically guaranteeing his government's survival. Rafi Boudjikanian, CBC News, Ottawa.
Our neighbors in New Brunswick are gearing up for their next election. Blaine Higgs has called for a provincial election on October 21st. The Progressive Conservative leader made the announcement after visiting the Lieutenant Governor to have the legislature dissolved. Affordability and health care are set to be major issues.
Obviously, health care is going to be a question, but the point on this is we have a system, we're progressing in the system, we've had 100,000 new people, it's making additional challenges, and I think we have to recognize that growth is creating pain, and it's pain with gain. And I'm hopeful that we will have the support to continue the momentum.
Higgs is seeking a third term as premier after leading New Brunswick since 2018. He says he'll try to win over inflation-weary voters by promising to lower the harmonized sales tax by 2 percentage points to 13% if re-elected. The leaders of the Liberal and Green parties have also said their focus will be on economic and social issues.
A world-famous photo of Winston Churchill has been returned to officials at the Canadian Embassy in Rome. Nicknamed the Roaring Lion, it was stolen 2 years ago from the Chateau Laurier in Ottawa. Paul Hunter has more on its recovery and repatriation.
And now is the moment I think we've all been waiting for a very long time.
And with that, at a ceremony inside the Canadian Embassy in Rome, up went the curtain, and there it was. A Canadian treasure, a historic, freshly recovered Yusuf Karsh photo of the British Prime Minister Winston Churchill. The Roaring Lion, as it's known, stolen from the walls of the Fairmont Chateau Laurier Hotel in Ottawa nearly 3 years ago, replaced by the thief with a fake, and missing until police found it here in Italy. Now, the official signed handover from Italian authorities back to Canada.
What's going through your mind?
I'm still having a hard time. It's the real one. It's exciting.
I've never known you to be speechless.
It's just, I'm still having a hard time to believe we're actually here in Rome, and this is our portrait, and we're going to bring it back.
Among those in the crowd, Nicola Casanelli, an Italian who'd unwittingly bought the photo at an online auction long before police even knew it had been stolen. When he learned the truth, Casanelli gave it up to Italian police.
I'm happy that even if I enjoyed it privately for nearly 2 years in my living room, now visitors from all over the world will have the same opportunity in Ottawa, not in my home, but it's nice that it could happen again.
This is the day that we've been working so hard to get to.
That's it. Ottawa police cracked the case with forensic clues, tips from the Karsh estate, and other evidence still not public. An Ontario man now faces multiple charges. Did you ever think you'd see this day?
I felt like we were. It was just going to take a long time. You know, I hope for one of two conclusions, either to charge the subject or recover the portrait. Sometimes we don't get to do both. And in this case, we have been able to, so I'm very happy.
The photo itself is now headed home, expected back up on the walls at the chateau sometime next month. What a journey. Paul Hunter, CBC News, Rome.
The leader of Hezbollah says that Israel has crossed a red line after pagers and walkie-talkies used by the militant group exploded almost simultaneously in Lebanon. And it comes as both sides launch fresh attacks across the border. Chris Brown reports.
Lebanon is rattled and panicked after experiencing the horror of everyday electronic devices suddenly becoming bombs. Police were taking no chances, carrying out controlled explosions on anything suspicious looking. Of course we're scared, said Mustafa Sabai. Who can feel safe in this situation? Who can feel secure about their phone now? The toll of injured is now above 3,600, with Lebanese health authorities confirming 25 were killed in Wednesday's radio handset explosions, with 12 dead a day earlier from pagers. This trauma doctor said she's never encountered injuries like the ones she's been treating.
So they had puncture wounds on their faces, they had amputated limbs, they had open abdomens, intestines out, bowels out.
Israel's government has not admitted it was behind what appears to be an unprecedented tampering operation, but most people in Lebanon are behaving like it was. Hezbollah's chief, Hassan Nasrallah, accused what he called the Zionist entity of violating every international law and red line. As he spoke, Israeli fighter jets flew low over Beirut and struck at targets in southern Lebanon. Hezbollah's attacks on northern Israel have driven tens of thousands of Israelis from their homes. But Nasrallah vowed the militia, which Canada considers to be a terrorist group, will not stop its strikes as they're in solidarity with Palestinians in Gaza. How Israel intends to capitalize on the chaos is also uncertain, even as the defense minister intensified his threats of further military action in what he called a new phase of the war. Some in Israel, though, are dismayed with that shift.
We don't care about Hezbollah. War must be ended.
Hostage families say getting their family members home should remain the priority, not Hezbollah. Chris Brown, CBC News, London.
It has been a deadly and record-breaking year of wildfires in large areas of South America. The fires are devastating forests and wetlands and upending people's lives. The CBC's Susan Ormiston has more.
The Amazon is burning, weakened by 2 years of record drought, with river basins at historic lows, smoke choking huge cities like Sao Paulo, and flames licking the borders of Brazil's capital.
I'm here in Brasilia, and I have been sick for almost 2 weeks with respiratory problems.
NASA satellite images show the spread of wildfires in red here across South America, and then poor air quality marked in yellow stretching over vast swaths of land. The rainforest is particularly vulnerable from an early dry season and a deadly combination of heat and land practices.
On one side, we have climate change impacting all the climate conditions that help fires to propagate. And on the other side, we have people setting those fires.
She means fires set by farmers to clear pasture and by criminals to deforest land.
So the level of economic losses are really big, and they are cascading every day.
The Brazilian president flew to Amazonas last week to survey conditions, saying Brazil is not prepared for this ongoing intensity of fires, further frustrating efforts to curb deforestation.
There has to be a change, and the opportunity is a lesson from this drought, but it doesn't seem to be getting through.
Not only in Brazil, in Bolivia, more than 10 million hectares have burned. Protesters urging the government to do more, with much of the country focused on fighting the fires. Like Sofia Bello, a volunteer in a fire brigade.
They're really scared. They haven't seen this, and they haven't seen this much drought, never. They are leaving their jobs, leaving their families to go and work 24, 48 hours nonstop.
And there's no reprieve yet. The rainy season is weeks away, and last year even that was sparse. Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Toronto.
The Canadian Medical Association has formally apologized to Indigenous peoples. The doctors group held a special ceremony in Victoria to say sorry for a long history of racist practices and maltreatment. Yvette Brend has the details.
A tribute to all those who paid a price in a healthcare system tainted by racism.
The Canadian Medical Association is deeply sorry for the harms First Nations, Inuit, and Métis peoples have experienced and continue to experience in the Canadian health system.
Dr. Alika Lafontaine was the Canadian Medical Association's first Indigenous president. He says he's witnessed how the system treats Indigenous people differently.
One of my earliest memories of going onto a clinical rotation after being in the classroom for a couple of years was seeing two patients walk in right after each other, have the same set of symptoms, but one was asked to sleep off their drunkenness while the other one had full workup for a heart attack and a stroke.
The CMA's apology fulfills a call to action by Canada's Truth and Reconciliation Commission. The association searched more than 150 years of archives to own up to its past, while acknowledging the problem persists today. As documented by a damning 2020 report on the BC healthcare system, and the story of Joyce Echequan, who live-streamed the verbal abuse of hospital workers as she lay dying nearly 4 years ago. Racist healthcare also evident in forced sterilizations and segregated hospitals.
I'm hopeful that doctors will start to see Indigenous people as human beings and go past just as a client that walks into their office.
Joyce
Echequan's cousin says people have lost trust.
C'est sûr que ça va être dur d'accepter ces excuses.
She says an apology is hard to accept. The CMA promises it's just a first step. Yvette Brand, CBC News, Victoria.
All right, well, fall's coming. We're okay with a little bit of a dip in the temperatures.
Yeah, you know, the pumpkin spice
Yeah,
weather.
of course.
Pumpkin spice season for sure. And yeah, listen, we're not going from, high 20s to 10 degrees.
No.
So it's
pretty comfortable slide.
It's
we're on.
Maybe it's more apple cider. I don't know.
Definitely, yeah. And we'll get there, of course, for you folks that are really looking for some cooler days. But let's have a look first before we usher in fall. And a look back at the last couple of days, of course, have been so nice. And folks have been taking full advantage. We've been having pics of folks on the beach. How about this from the Brewer Lakes? Cameron Island. On the boat.
That is a good spot to be.
Catherine says it was 28 degrees when this picture was taken. Cameron Island Lighthouse there in the picture, and thanks to Catherine for sharing. Ryan's pics at cbc.ca. It has indeed been quite a run over the last handful of days, really. Tomorrow, back to reality in terms of seasonal temperatures, and you can see looking at high teens, a few low 20s, the warmest temps likely in the north, and that's our greatest chance of seeing a bit more sun in the mix as well. Now, as that area of high pressure over Labrador settles in a little bit more, calling it a variable cloud type day on Saturday, where I think we'll see times of the day where the clouds are dominant, other times where, we get some solid sunny periods in there, especially towards the north. A very isolated chance of a shower. Now, funny enough, just based on the setup, it looks like we'll actually have a pretty good setup for, some sunshine on Sunday, maybe even a little more favorable for most of us on Sunday, but there's also the chance for some of those showers moving in as we're kind of sandwiched between that low to the south and that low over the North Atlantic. So a little bit of everything over the next 3 days as we usher in fall.
All right, thanks for that, Ryan. Well, a gas balloon race that began in Germany has wrapped up more than 2,000 kilometers away in southern Portugal.
Yep, the 67th edition of the Long Distance Championship in Europe launched on Saturday. 21 teams took off with the aim to travel to the furthest point from where the race began.
Some ended their run in France the next day. More kept dropping off the race over time until a dozen were left, still floating. An Australian team won the championship after sailing more than 2,100 kilometers.
That's pretty far.
Oh, yeah, sure is. All right, that's it for us tonight. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Good night.
Good night.